wrote to all those people. That was his job. The Thessalonians. That was his job to preach to the Gentiles. Because the word is for everybody. But yet, that don't mean Israel don't matter no more. James told you who he wrote to, right? Who did he write to? He wrote to the 12 tribes. Where the 12 tribes at? What did he say?
Which are scattered abroad.
Which are scattered abroad. See, they got scattered abroad. But disobedient. So when James made this letter, wrote this letter, which is after Jesus died and resurrected, Israel was already scattered abroad, right? Mm-hmm. But still, it was important enough for him to write to them, right? Okay. Because they can't stay scattered abroad, can they? See, that's what people don't understand. Even if you're going to say, well, these people are Jews, Jew really represent only one tribe, Judah. Somebody should ask them, well, where are the other 11 tribes at since Israel is back home? See, when Israel go back home, all of Israel got to go back home. All 12 tribes that Brother James is talking about right here, all of them got to go back home. Let's see. Go to Jeremiah 9. Now we're going to get to what this day is pointing to. We just set it up. Jeremiah 31. Jeremiah 31. Jeremiah 31. And we're going to pick it up at verse 7 because God never intended to do away with Israel permanently. He just basically put us on punishment. James 31, and verse 7. Go ahead.
For thus saith the Lord, sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the chief of the nations. Mm-hmm. Publish ye, praise ye, and say, O Lord, save thy people, the remnant of Israel.
See, this is what everybody needs to be doing. Because when Israel gets straight, the real Israel, it's going to be a blessing for everybody. So God is telling everybody to seek the Lord and ask the Lord to save the remnant of his people. No matter who, you could be a Greek, you could be from Poland, you can be a German, you can be an Ethiopian. It's going to benefit you when God straightens Israel out. Because he got to straighten them out. See, can't nobody else get blessed until Israel is getting blessed. So he got to straighten them out. So that's why he's saying, sing with gladness for Jacob. He's telling everybody to do that. That's why I say the Gentiles, some Gentiles realize that they need to be helping Israel. They're just helping the wrong ones. They're helping the ones that say they are Jews and are not. Obviously, they don't need much help anyway. They own practically everything. What kind of help they need? Where they've been scattered in slavery at. And the Holocaust is not slavery. As bad as that can be, it's not slavery. Slavery is a whole nother animal. But that's where Israel is. So he said, for thus said the Lord, sing with gladness for Jacob. Shout among the chief nations and publish ye, praise ye, and say, O Lord, save thy people. The remnant, see, the remnant means a remainder. See, there's only going to be a remnant left when the Lord gather Israel. Complete this Feast of Tabernacle, the Feast of Ingathering. Only going to be a remnant. Let's see what he says. Verse 8.
Behold, I will bring them from the north country.
He said, look, I'm going to bring them back. I'm going to bring them from the north. Remember, you got scattered out even on slave ships, right? Mm-hmm. Jesus told you that you was going to go, Israel was going to go captive into all nations, right? So now, he go to Ingathering. Behold, I will bring them from the north country. Well.
And gather them from the coast of the earth.
That's where you at. Go ahead.
And with them the blind and the lame, the woman with child, and her that travaileth with child together. A great company shall return thither.
A great company. See, this is future right here. This have not happened. See, when Israel go back, everybody in the world going to know it. It ain't going to be no fight, no little weak war, and United Nations take them back. No, God himself going to do the most dramatic thing you ever seen. Go ahead. A great company shall return thither. Verse 9.
They shall come with weeping, and with supplications will I lead them.
Go ahead.
I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way, wherein they shall not stumble.
Why? Go ahead.
For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn.
He said, I'm a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. That's another name for Israel. But go ahead, verse 10.
Hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations. and declare it in the isles afar
He
off,
wants the whole world to hear this, don't he? Hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off. Declare what? Go ahead.
and say, he that scattered Israel will gather him, and keep him as a shepherd doeth his flock.
You mean that's what God wants you to hear? See, because God is the one scattered Israel. We saw he put a curse on Israel in Deuteronomy 28 and said you're going to be scattered from one end of the earth to the other. In all nations, right? Even mentioned you're going to go to ships and be sold to your enemies, right? We saw Jesus back that up, right? We saw James acknowledge that at his time that Israel was scattered. The 12 tribes was scattered, right? Abroad. But we already knew from the first scripture we read that Israel was going to be gathered together along with all nations, all the people of God gathered together in one and scattered abroad. We knew that. So he said it here, verse 10, hear the word of the Lord, ye nations, declare the isles afar off, and say, he that scattereth Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd doth his flock. See, we here observe in this, God gave us a day to recognize what he's going to do in the future. This is important to God. But see, don't nobody talk about Israel being scattered or gathered because they didn't forget. If they kept this holy day, they wouldn't have no choice but to recognize that. See, when you do follow God's plan, you recognize the things of God. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy 30. Deuteronomy 30. See, because we saw he put a curse on Israel. And the curse climaxed with them being scattered in bondage, in slavery. That's what it climaxed about. See, so that's always the key, brothers and sisters. That's the number one identifying tool for Israel is that they are scattered in slavery. So it's going to be a big event when they get gathered. That's why we acknowledge it with this holy day. It's going to be a great event when they get gathered home from slavery. See, God wouldn't even be fair if he let us as a people. Like I said, this is going to benefit all nations. But God wouldn't even be fair if he let us as a people go into slavery and we never ever went home. I don't care if we wasn't Israel. We never ever went home. Didn't know where home was. See, but God is not like that. He's been telling you that, yeah, I scattered you and I'm going to gather you in. I'm going to gather you home. So you got to do it because he made promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Deuteronomy 30, verse 1, go ahead.
And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee.
See, now he says it's going to come to pass. After it all is taking place, we're at the end now, and that's where we're at right now. That's why this is called the Feast of Ingathering. He said it's going to come to pass when all this is taking place. The blessing, because I told you, Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 through 14, talk about how he was going to bless Israel unimaginably. But then at verse 15, we read how he said he was going to curse Israel every which way possible. And then we just read the big part of the curse, them being scattered all over. Them being scattered even on slave ships. So now, he wrapping it up. He said it should come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing which they had when they inherited the promised land for a minute amount of time, and the curse which we still living under at the end of it, which I set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the. Isn't God awesome? God is awesome because he set this stuff up a long time ago. And he made it where his people is going to be lost and in slavery, don't even know who they are, haven't been home in a long time, and yet all of a sudden they're going to wake up and start calling to mind because he got it written in the book. He got it written in the book. God is real practical. He said, I'm going to put in this book, so at the set time, I'm going to let them start reading that, and they're going to say, oh, that's what happened. That's why I got scattered in the bond. You're going to call it to mind. That's what he said, right? Mm-hmm. See, that means you have forgot. You done forgot who you are. Like the comedian said, boy used to be a genius. Now he don't even know who he is. And that is Israel. Israel don't even know who he is. Like they were singing in a song. It's a shame. I'm going to bring the choir back up for y'all. So now, read that verse again. What verse is that?
Verse 1.
Uh-huh.
And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee.
See, the Lord did it. Plus, people want to put everything else on everybody else. They want to blame people. God is running this show. He said, you going to call it to mind among these nations, whither the Lord thy God have driven you. God has drove you all over the world in bondage because he was fed up with us breaking his law. And we got churches today that teach against God's law. That's why they ain't got no better. Go ahead, verse 2.
And shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day.
Now see, that's the answer to our problem. Not marching on Washington, sitting in and rioting and acting crazy, petitioning the president. That's not the answer. The answer is what got you in trouble? Disobedience to God. So what's going to make it better? He said, when you call it to mind among these nations where I drove you, Israel, you need to return unto the Lord your God and obey his voice, because that's what got you in trouble. According to what?
According to all that I command thee this day.
You and who else?
Thou and thy children, with all thy heart and with all thy soul.
See, that's where we at. We in the process of this right now, brothers and sisters. That's why we a strange apple. You know, everybody else went to work doing their usual business. What we doing here today? We ain't supposed to be doing nothing like this, but this got to be fulfilled. We turning back, doing the Lord's business that we can read right out of this Bible. Go ahead, verse 3. That when you start to do that, which we doing now, so we getting close, what's the Lord going to do in the end? Go ahead.
That then the Lord thy God would turn thy captivity.
Oh, you're going to be in captivity to that time, right? Mm-hmm. Remember, you got led out even on slave ships, right? Mm-hmm. Jesus said you're going to be led captive into all nations. You can't go against Jesus, right? It must mean something he wanted you to know, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, you're going to be there until you start to wake up, and you're going to start to say, oh, that's why people don't like me. God didn't curse me. Why he cursed me? Because I haven't been doing what I was supposed to do. I've been worshiping false gods instead of the real God. Then when you wake up and start doing God's business, like we here observing this feast, we keep the Sabbath day, we keep his dietary law, we're doing the best we can do in a bad situation, he said that's when, that then the Lord thy God will turn your captivity. You in captivity until that day though. Go ahead and do what?
And have compassion upon thee.
What else?
And will return and gather thee from all the nations.
Oh, he's going to return and gather you from all the nations. That's the first scripture we read. He got to gather the people, right? Mm-hmm. It's been scattered abroad, Jews and Gentiles. But it started with Israel because Israel was the people that got scattered out. Go ahead.
Whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
Go ahead, verse 4.
If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven.
See, that means the earth, but see, the earth is going to be heaven right here on earth in the end, so God called it. He said his will is going to be done in earth as it is in heaven. That means it's going to be in heavenly kingdom, right? Mm-hmm. When his will is done in earth as it is in heaven. See, obviously ain't nobody scattered and lost up in the third heaven where the Father is, right? He ain't got no people up there got lost. He said he had to send angels to go over there and find old John. He wandered around the cloud over there. Now, ain't nobody lost up there, right? Mm. But he said right here, if any of them be driven out to the outmost parts of heaven, that's talking about under the heaven on the earth. But the earth is going to be heaven. Wherever you at, go ahead.
From thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee.
Isn't that something God said, I don't care where you at. You know, like they call certain countries, they call it, but this country is down under. God said you could be under a rock, down under. And I'm going to get you from there. Every last one. Because though we done lost our identity and don't know who we are, God know for sure, don't he? He know who everybody is. And he's going to gather Israel. He said, from this will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from this will he fetch thee. See, that's why he gave this holy day to honor what he going to do. Verse 5, go ahead.
And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed.
Oh, he's not gathering you to take you to heaven, huh, in the rapture, is it? Mm-hmm. When he gathered you, where he taking you? To the land. See, people don't realize it's all about land. That's what he promised Abraham, land. He didn't promise Abraham heaven to go up to heaven.